Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for everyone who's been waiting for me. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining in. Thank you for everyone who's been waiting for me. And welcome to another live stream. Welcome to our members and subscribers and everyone. I posted a video earlier on to talk about the latest updates from Gaza, and what I'm going to be talking to you about tonight is directly linked to what's happening in Gaza, but highlights the level of conflict between the Israeli officials and leaders of the military establishment, the political establishment, and the intelligence establishment. All of them are linked together. However, they haven't been working in harmony, to say the least, and they are definitely not working in harmony now. There were obviously claims that we're going to go into Rafah. This is going to be the final operation. All of the Hamas brigades have been dismantled. Only 4 left in Rafah, and we are going to go in. However, ever since the beginning of the Rafah genocide, we had Bezalel Smotrich claiming that we will go into the central camps to dismantle further brigades, Nusayrat and Deir al-Balah, and now they're all across of Gaza. Their massacres are all across of Gaza. Jabalia, Gaza City, Nusayrat, Deir al-Balah, everywhere. What does that mean? That means, obviously, that they're liars. That also means that they haven't dismantled the brigades of Hamas. And that also means that they are having severe internal conflicts, very severe internal conflicts. But the level of conflicts and statements that we had today particularly are unprecedented. So I wanted to speak with you about an article that was published in the Israeli newspaper, Ma'arif, one of the leading newspapers in Israel. They published an article today on their website saying, well, the title was, quote, "You forbid me to hold strategic discussions." And then they continued a sharp confrontation between Gallant and Netanyahu. Again, not the first time. We had conflicts between Gallant and Netanyahu before this, the 7th of October. As a matter of fact, during the judicial reform protests, Yoav Gallant, who is the defense minister and who is also a part of Benjamin Netanyahu's Likud party, he was showing more understanding to the protesters, and Benjamin Netanyahu sacked him. After he sacked him, he had to take him back following pressure, sacking the defense minister. Obviously, that's linked with other things to do with security in Israel, such as the fact that Bezalel Smotrich holds a position of minister inside the Ministry of Defense, and that Itamar Ben-Gvir is the Minister of National Security, which was a new position created for him, similarly to the new position created with Bezalel Smotrich, that were unprecedented and were key for Benjamin Netanyahu to form his government, because these people wanted the position of defense minister, but Netanyahu had already promised it to Yoav Gallant previously, so he tried to come up, as usual, with this trick to please everyone and form a government. We have many ministers in Israel who are ministers without a specific specialism, by the way. They call them ministers without files. Bribery, a way of bribery for Benjamin Netanyahu to give people the position of a minister without the requirement for it. And these people are on big salaries in Israel. Many people criticize him for it. With regards to the internal fighting that we had, particularly after that, between Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav-Gallant, that was very evident from the beginning. They failed to hold press conferences together many times. They had to cancel press conferences in the last second. Many war cabinet meetings exploded previously. Shouting matches almost broke into fighting. They canceled them in the middle without reaching any sort of solutions or plans to go ahead further. And the highlight at the time was Yoav-Gallant storming Benjamin Netanyahu's office and threatening to bring a brigade from Golani to set order in Benjamin Netanyahu's office, which again signals the level of split in the Israeli army, not just in the Israeli society or in Israeli politics. Now we have another confirmation. And by the way, it wasn't restricted with Benjamin Netanyahu and Yoav-Gallant. He previously had feuds with the head of the Mossad, the head of the Shin Bet. He prevented the head of the Mossad from going to Qatar and discussing. He banned him from reaching an agreement. He sent his representatives to ensure that the head of the Mossad does not do something that he hasn't authorized. And now we have another conflict with some interesting admissions that I wanted to share with you. So this report in Ma'arif, it stated the following. During a small meeting that dealt with the issue of the day after the war, an argument broke out between Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and Defense Minister Yoav-Gallant and Shin Bet Chief Ronen Bar, as reported today by News 12. According to the quotes, the head of the Shin Bet began by saying, quote, "We held a discussion with the Minister of Defense, and this discussion was a discussion that took into account all the decrees and considerations." Netanyahu interrupted his words and said, "What? Are you holding strategic discussions with the Minister of Defense?" Ronen Bar replied, "What question? Certainly." And Netanyahu replied, "As far as I remember, the Shin Bet and the Mossad are subordinate to the Prime Minister." At this point, the Minister of Defense intervened and said, "Are you forbidding the Minister of Defense to hold strategic discussions? Who exactly will, if not us?" And Netanyahu replied, "Strategic discussions only take place here." Gallant concluded, "Every time you hold strategic discussions, we will arrive prepared. It is my duty to hold discussions in order to come here prepared. The problem is that you do not hold such discussions." It was also published that sources close to Netanyahu said that the Prime Minister authorized the Minister of Defense to hold discussions without Netanyahu's presence only on the issue of abductees, but noted that this is not the first time that Gallant has acted contrary to this. The Gallant office said that they do not refer to what is said in closed conversations and that they regret leaks from sensitive discussions. Before I continue, the leaking of sensitive discussions, this came in from inside. And previously, Benjamin Netanyahu security checked the IDF chief of staff, which was unprecedented, to make sure he doesn't have surveillance or spying devices, recording devices to record what's happening and leaking it to the media. This is the level of distrust in the top Israeli leadership. They continued that, obviously, alongside many other examples that I spoke about previously. They concluded with these two paragraphs. Also, News 13 published a note. News 13 published that in one of the recent cabinet discussions, Chief of Staff Herzi Halevi told the Prime Minister, quote, "We are now operating once again in Jabalia. As long as there is no political move that will grow a non-Hamas governing body in the Strip, we will have to act again and again there and in other places to dismantle the Hamas infrastructure. It will be a Sisyphean effort. A Sisyphean effort is an effort that keeps going on without any results, meaning we cannot win, we cannot defeat them, we cannot reach a solution this way. This was from the IDF Chief of Staff, Herzi Halevi, to Benjamin Netanyahu, which includes a clear dig at his moves and a massive criticism because they're being ordered to take action when they're incapable of reaching a solution, but they are bound by the orders of the Prime Minister of Israel, who is Benjamin Netanyahu, who completely ignores them, ignores their suggestions and their efforts, and sometimes hinders their efforts and bans them from trying to reach a solution to this genocide. They concluded, in addition to this, it was reported that during the last few weeks, senior members of the cabinet warned Prime Minister Netanyahu and told him that the conduct of the political echelon in the issue of the day after the war in Gaza and lack of decision-making on the issue endangers human lives. And when they say endangers human lives, they mean endangers Israeli human lives. We had protests today in Tel Aviv and in other locations in Israel where people were criticizing Benjamin Netanyahu and the decision makers very heavily, but primarily Benjamin Netanyahu, telling him that he has blood on his hands, that there is no security because of him and because of his decisions, and that he needs to close a deal that will bring the Israelis back home, and that all of the delay is causing more Israelis to be killed. This is coming from Israel, and this has been happening since the beginning of this genocide. People were reacting to the level of Israeli barbarism and aggression from day one, saying, what if our people are there? And this was the main thing that I wanted to talk to you about in this video. I'll open the space up for you now, see if you have any questions or comments that I would be more than happy to address. If you wouldn't mind, if you have any questions or comments, if you could please just highlight them so I can get to them quickly, whether it relates to this topic or the ones in the previous video or anything else really. Gullyberg is saying, I became a wasp farmer after yesterday's incident. Yeah, the Al-Qassam wasps attacking Israel. Apparently a tank ran over a place and they started to attack them in their hundreds. The church is saying they are committing horrendous massacres still. Indeed, they are committing horrendous massacres still. I told you previously, these are child murdering forces. This is a satanic death cult. So if you watched any horror movie with zombies who are thirsty for blood, Israel is like that, just at a bigger, larger scale. They are bloodthirsty and they want to feed their bloodlust and the genocidal people within them. And there are, Lord knows, many people in Israel who are bloodthirsty and don't value anything but their own selves and their own lives, because everyone else to them and according to their beliefs is a goy, is a non-Jewish person, is a non-Zionist person, and they view them as a lower human being. And with regards to Gaza particularly, they always state that these people should be completely massacred. We should expel all of them. There are many people who call on Netanyahu to push for a bigger genocide. People need to understand that. And many of those who even oppose what's happening in Gaza are fine with the concept of genocide against other people, but not anything killing Israelis. You need to understand that. However, there is definitely, as with any other country, albeit a small minority in Israel, of genuine peace-seeking people who don't want any of that and go against the genocide itself, but their number is insignificant and they're nowhere near decision-making in Israel. James Thompson is saying, watching from Leeds, UK, Viva la Resistance. Yes, indeed. Welcome, James, and everyone else from South Africa, US. As usual, we have people from all across the world. Have people from Lebanon watching, have people from African countries, Latin America, Asia. Welcome to all of you. Shell Hudson is saying, all they have to do is stop. What is so hard about that? The concept of finding an all-out solution before even stopping is easy. It's not something difficult, and it's much more cost-effective. It doesn't cost a fortune to spend on army. The thing that they can solve all of this with is equality. If people between the Jordan River to the sea, Palestinians like Israelis, received equal rights, full equal rights, full civilian equal rights, we wouldn't have had this problem. You would have probably had talks about the image of the state, about reforms, about how it's run and this and that. But if we had a concept of equality, we wouldn't have been here. With regards to now, currently, you need to understand that it's mostly dependent on Benjamin Netanyahu, this individual. He is careless about anyone. Benjamin Netanyahu is only concerned about Benjamin Netanyahu. He needs to secure the day after this war finishes, which is going to be temporary, regardless of what type of ceasefire deal we reach, is going to be temporary. We're either going to have an ongoing war, an ongoing genocide, up until we reach a final solution, or we're going to have a very temporary ceasefire with an ongoing conflict that might escalate at any point and be much harsher than what it is at the moment. Benjamin Netanyahu, by continuing this genocide, clearly hasn't secured the day after yet. Once he does secure the day after, his position, him remaining in power for the next few years up until you have other elections, because he will not accept a new election in Israel, you will see him stopping and having a deal and then continuing. Clearly, we haven't reached that stage yet. And he's still worried about the day after, or that he hasn't received the guarantees that he wants for the day after. Therefore, he's pushing up until he, in his delusional mind, would achieve something that would be deemed as a victory, because so far they have no victory against the Palestinian resistance. The Israeli accomplishments in Gaza are as follows: child murdering, women murdering, children being torn to pieces. You saw their body parts if you're on social media, body parts of children being bombed to smithereens by this merciless, genocidal, satanic death cult. Complete destruction of civilian infrastructure, destruction of homes, hospitals, bakeries, water wells, factories, and universities, and the list goes on. These are the Israeli accomplishments. They haven't accomplished anything with the Palestinian resistance. As a matter of fact, the actions of the Palestinian resistance following the invasion of Rafah have shown that the Palestinian resistance is in even better condition before they invaded Rafah. We again have strategic missiles being launched at Israel. Now, whether that's something that the Palestinian resistance delayed to this day, deliberately did it, trying to send a message, clearly they have the capacity. Then all of Israeli forces in Gaza, throughout any location they're based at and heading towards, are getting a massive beating from the Palestinian resistance. Israel hasn't dismantled anything in Gaza when it comes to resistance. They're very operative. They have exceptional skills, intel, freedom of movement, and their infrastructure is intact, which is primarily the tunnels. And they're still targeting Israel with every single weapon they targeted them from day one. So, unless Benjamin Netanyahu has some sort of reassurances for the day after, he will continue this. The bigger question is, who's enabling him? The genocidal supremacist racists of the West. That's number one, in power. And you have people who are thinkers as well and who still spew venom and hatred and discrimination and supremacy in many of the Western countries that support Israel. That's number one. That's number two, the lack of intimidation, the lack of deterrence and action from the countries surrounding Israel. I said it before, if one country had the option and capacity and power to level parts of Israel like they level Gaza and threatened Israel with it, we wouldn't have had a massacre. We wouldn't have had this genocide. But Israel is enabled because of the enablers in countries that call themselves democratic and enlightened, and secular, by the way, who are happy with a radical Jewish supremacist Nazi fascist state, or at least calls itself as such. We always say that they use Judaism as a front. However, they do, and it's undeniable. They're fine with that concept. And you have the Arab nations, Arab states, and Muslim states surrounding Israel that are not taking enough action. All you have is action from people who value their positions and morals over worldly rewards and are willing to sacrifice and aren't afraid of repercussions from Lebanon, from Yemen, from Iraq, and from Iran. These are the people who are taking some sort of action to deter the child murdering forces. Otherwise, not enough action. That's why these people are enabled. And people are still trying to whitewash their crimes. And people are still spinning. And people are still spewing venom and spreading propaganda, lies about everything. But the 7th of October, everything, every time you come and take some of these people on MSM particularly. But remember, it's the 7th of October. But remember the 7th of October. 7th of October, there was a military campaign by Hamas against the Israeli army, and there was a massacre simultaneously by Israel against its own people. In Be'eri, in Ra'im, in Nir Oz, and in the Nova Festival, as confirmed many times, and I talk about this regularly because it's very important to talk about this regularly and remind people that Israel massacred its own citizens on October the 7th, as confirmed by who? By pilots from the Israeli army, by Israelis who survived the 7th of October, by people who were kidnapped and then released. What's going to happen? What will they do? You've had 7 months to take down Hamas now and the Palestinian resistance. You haven't been able to. You landed over 80,000 tons of TNT on Gaza, on people, on children, on babies, on hospitals, on women, on innocent civilians, on schools, on refugee camps, on trucks loading people from one refugee camp to another, on tents, on hospitals, universities, schools. 3 times more than the combined nuclear attack on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. What have you achieved? Global shame. The world saw you and sees you now for who you are. A depraved nation. A depraved nation full of neo-fascists, full of bloodthirsty, child-murdering people. For who you are, for how you were established. They were established like that in the Nakba. Massacres in every small town in Palestine. They destroyed 500 villages, burnt them down, raping 15, 16-year-old women and burning them, massacring people, expelling 750,000 people from their homes. That's how they were established. And now the world sees them for who they are. So that's their achievement. Yet despite all of that, like I said, some people still try and cover up shamelessly. People who either, number one, share the same supremacist, racist, abhorrent values of Israel, number one. Number two, paid. Number three, part of a pedophile network or a child molesting network or a sexual network like Epstein's network or any new networks that we don't know, who have themselves videoed in very sensitive positions, to say the least, and that's being used as leverage against them. And that's most of your political leaders, most likely. There's leverage used against them. These people have networks, you need to understand. The network of blackmailing. Don't underestimate that. Look at Epstein. Look at how many leaders. That's just the Epstein network. And we didn't see the scale yet to this day, by the way. The whole scale of the Epstein network. We don't know if someone else took over and is operating. And we don't know about the secret networks. We know about the money, but we don't know everything. So bear that in mind. But these people are in power. And they vote. They vote against the ceasefire. They say things that the people who pay them ask them to say. And they control media, they're in politics, and they wear ties and suits. Remember that very well. When you hear the word terrorist, remember very well, tie, suit, looking clean. The grand masters of terror. Anything else terror is like small-scale 7-Eleven shop. They're even more than the Walmart of terror. So remember that. Marvin Berg is saying, what's the official massacre count in Palestine since 1948 up to the start of the war? How many in total? Smallest massacre count, largest massacres count. Between 1947 and October the 6th, 2023, Israel killed 106,000 people that are non-Israelis. That includes at least half of which Palestinian, but it also includes tens of thousands of Egyptians, Lebanese, Syrians, and other nationalities. But the vast majority is Palestinian. With regards to the massacres, firstly, you had massacres leading to 1948, after these Zionist settlers started immigrating from Europe and wreaking havoc and forming terrorist organizations. Then obviously the big massacres started to happen late 1947, 1948. And these range from dozens to hundreds of people. Now remember, with regards to the documentation and everything to do with history, although many people did a very good job with regards to the history of the massacre and the ethnic cleansing, all of that was limited to the information that we obtained. However, it's still massive numbers of people killed and massacred. But what they did in Gaza is one of the biggest event of massacres, the biggest massacre of Palestinians ever. What's happening now? So in terms of numbers, this is worse than the Nakba. The numbers of people massacred, worse than the Nakba. Worse than 1948. Almost 35,000. We probably passed 35,000. There were a couple of more babies and children today. And women, and innocent men too. So that's for people to contextualize and view the whole picture, really, because many people don't like to contextualize. They like to take everything out of context, but not only take things out of context, the things that they do take out of context are manipulated and fabricated. You see, Israel was established on a pseudo history. It's not a genuine state. It's a foreign entity formed by vile supremacist squatters who stole the land and expelled its true owners, true people of the land, for a violent supremacist neo-colonial project. That's what happened. And now, obviously, with Gaza, the only thing that's not working in terms of the genocide is the completion of the ethnic cleansing, because the plan was the ethnic cleansing primarily. So to them, if most people could flee, great. But they started killing more and more and more to put more pressure on people to leave. And they targeted every lifeline to show people that this place is uninhabitable. This place is miserable. You have no future here. But the Palestinian people know them. They're people of faith and strong spirits. They know them. They know what happened in 1948 and 1967. 72% of them are refugees. Rafah in particular, over 90% of it consists of refugees. These people know who they're dealing with. Gaza is saying 35K is conservatives don't know how many people are under the rubble. True. So you could be talking about over 30,000, but these numbers include bodies that are being found in mass graves. Have you seen the latest report about the new mass grave found next to Al-Shifa with 49 bodies? Decapitated. Decapitated, just heads. They found just heads in certain locations. And bodies not just decomposed, like missing organs, missing parts. These are the Israeli accomplishments in Gaza. Marvin Berg is saying, do you think Nakba number 2 Remembrance Day will be created? I would love to see it counter the Holocaust Remembrance Day. Across all of Palestine, people commemorate the Nakba, including Palestinians inside of Israel. And there's usually always a march towards a Palestinian village that was destroyed or ethnically cleansed. And Israel obviously officially doesn't allow anyone to rebuild or what have you. And if people try and, for example, rebuild something, Israel will come and destroy it. Because they already destroy houses of people in places where they didn't get permits, right? Like in the Nakba in the last few days, they kept hundreds of people without a roof on their head because they built houses without permission. And you're talking about communities that usually, tribal communities that move, right? And Israel, obviously, to them, that's unacceptable. But if you're a criminal coming from, I don't know, New York or any place in the US or any European country, if you're a criminal from there and you claim to be a Jew and you want to go on other people's land, they'll give you a free house and benefits and financial support and what have you. Judith is saying, Mahmoud, have you talked about the fires in Kiryat Shimon from Hezbollah's missiles? Is that the area of the Galilee where they have plans to separate from Israel? Yes. I did speak about it. And that's the area that the municipalities on the confrontation line, they call it in Israel, they plan to declare independence. On Israel's Independence Day, they plan to declare the state of the Galilee. Now, obviously, official Israel is trying to counter it with some sort of reassurances, but they've given them 7 months now. And you need to understand, Hezbollah destroyed whole towns. In some locations, over 80% of houses destroyed. There's nothing to return to anyway. And the state is not approving the funds that they want, 3.5 billion shekels, I think. They probably need more than that. And they're fuming, obviously, with the Israeli government, and it reached a stage where they want to declare their own state. And that's due to the constant attacks from Hezbollah as well. You see, some people underestimate the effect that Hezbollah did even with their limited attacks. And when we say limited in comparison to what they can do, where they can reach, but it's not limited in terms of quality. It's probably limited in terms of quantity and distance and reach, but not limited in terms of quality, right? And within the reach that they attacked, it's enormous. It's an enormous level of destruction that Hezbollah caused in Israel. Whenever Israel establishes a new secret base somewhere, Hezbollah know. They have eyes and ears inside of Israel with targeted strikes. So they'll send a suicide drone, for example, into a central part of a location. And they'll target the whole unit, everyone functioning there. All of them will go. Like the one they did in the Western Galilee just over a week ago. And obviously I spoke about it at the time. But now today I spoke about it in my previous video. The base that has the Iron Dome, several systems, they destroyed it. And again with drones, undetected. Undetected. That's why the people want to disengage from Israel and declare independence. But some people are asking, who are these people? There are people, some of them, who are worse than Benjamin Netanyahu himself. Gaza saying, do you think wasps are able to smell out pigs, or is this ability exclusive to the wasps of Gaza? No, I think it's exclusive to the wasps of Gaza. They've been trained to smell certain things. And they're prepared for this for years, by the way. You saw them wearing the kufiyas and stuff. They are highly sophisticated wasps, I'm telling you. Tashikon is saying, is the aid still being blocked? There's some aid going in. There's some aid going in. but not to the level that people need, really. I mean, Gaza before the 7th of October, it needed 500 trucks a day. At the biggest point during this genocide, and that's not to all parts of Gaza, the biggest number of trucks that entered Gaza in one day was approximately 250. That's not enough, especially for an area that's going through genocide. So 500 were going in on a normal day. Now you probably need 1,000 on a normal day to make up for everything and make the prices go down for anyone who sells anything. And obviously the aid and rebuilding, all of that stuff. So it shouldn't just reach 500 a day. It should be thousands a day now. And what's being allowed is barely anything for people to have a bite. So when you hear aid is going in, let no one be fooled. That's the bare minimum for you to function. In many cases, you don't function with it. You don't function with it. Suboptical, how could an independent Galilee state defend itself without American weapons? Do you think they will make peace with Hezbollah? They will have to have some sort of American weapons. Mind you, they will receive some sort of support if they do actually form, if it comes to light. Because Division 36 is in the north. Division 36 is more aligned with people who oppose Netanyahu, mostly Golani Brigade, and some people even call it the Brigade of Yoav-Gallant. He himself said he threatened Netanyahu with a brigade from Golani to come and set order in his office. If I'm going to a prime minister, I'm a defense minister, and I'm going to a prime minister, tell him, I'll bring this division to set order here, what am I saying? I'm saying these people are mine. They're aligned with me, and we're stronger than you. This is what I'm saying if I do that. So these people, some people in the army will show sympathy to these people because everything is ripe for a separate state to be formed. Everything is ripe in Israel. Look, from day one, I was saying you have a recipe for Israel for foreign intervention. You have a classical, perfect recipe for a coup, for a military coup, right? The US and the NATO, they fabricate things to go and commit a genocide and a coup and a regime change, as they call it in countries, right? Yet in Israel, you have a perfect recipe. So trust me, if a foreign army invaded Israel saying, I want to set law and order, many Israelis will welcome them. They'll say, yes, welcome. Obviously, that army would need to say that, no, but equality for everyone, not just for you Israelis, because you're Jewish. No, the Palestinians need to receive equality. But many people will welcome them. Why? Because they've seen what's happening. Their own government is not bringing security. Everything is split. Economic situation is diabolical. To many people, Israel died already. That's it. They're done. And they left. To the people who are in its misery, like many people are still in Israel, by the way, just because of they have people kidnapped and stuff. And they feel like they want to fight for them or whatever. Otherwise, why would they care? But the majority of people, lots of people left, over 3 million. Infinite content, thank you so much for your super. Saying love from Philly. In the US, how can they fight on 3 fronts, deal with civil unrest, and also address the Galilee cessation? The state is crumbling, totally. That's a very good point that you made there. They clearly cannot fight on 3 fronts, because if you didn't have Gaza and Hezbollah attacked Israel the way they did, you would have seen Israel all out in Lebanon. The fact that they're not all out in Lebanon means they're incapable. and means they're not supported with the sufficient equipment to go there, and means they don't have enough manpower. You need to consider all of these things. And the civil unrest, clearly Hamas and everyone kept an eye on Israel during the havoc of the judicial reform, when they started listening to people saying don't serve in the army, pilots and this and that. Netanyahu thought that by waging a massive war, a massive genocide, he will unite the Israeli nation under him and prevent the split from happening. It proved to work very momentarily. How? By some people who had some sort of alliance with him previously, like Benny Gantz and Eisenkot. Previously, two of them were the chiefs of staff of the IDF at one point, both Eisenkot and Gantz. And they said, okay, we'll form a unity government with you. However, it's temporarily for the war. And people thought, okay, fine, we'll fight as a united front. Clearly, that didn't happen. Number one, shortly after, people started protesting. Look, what are we doing? Especially people who had relatives kidnapped to Gaza and who saw the messages of Hamas. Now, mind you, Israel tries to prevent the messages of the Palestinian resistance from reaching the Israelis, but now they reach them live. As soon as Abu Ubaidah says a word, Israelis will be on the streets protesting. Like with the video that they released today of the Israeli who died in Gaza due to the Israeli genocide, you're talking about a diabolical situation, a catastrophical situation. And to them, it's what Netanyahu's doing is killing the Israeli state, right? So they sensed that, and they continued, and they're incapable. That's why they do not do it. John Doe, thank you so much for your generosity. I don't know what to tell you. Thank you very much for this. You said that what Israelis do can, shouldn't, and won't be forgotten nor forgiven. The one-state solution won't be viable if it means genocidal criminals programmed to hate Arabs living next to survivors of genocide, as nothing happened. It worked in South Africa, and they didn't have the Gaza genocide. Firstly, thank you so much for your contribution. I really value it and appreciate it. And secondly, that's a very correct and accurate comment. No one should forgive or forget. Absolutely. What I would say is, with regards to the one state, and I know many people have their criticisms and reservations with the one state, telling me how can you live next to people who committed a genocide, for example. Number one, having a one-state solution doesn't mean removing the liability of people. That's number one. So people still need to be held accountable, like the Nazis were. Then that also doesn't mean that things will be good the next day. And look at history. The United States had a civil war because of the ending of slavery, abolishing slavery, right? Some people wanted to continue the slavery. So many people, even after abolishing it, were like, no, we want slavery. Then if you look at racism in general, how many laws do you have against discrimination, against racism, discrimination of people against their ethnic or religious background or faith background? But we still have racist people. We still have supremacist people who believe in the concept of supremacy and that they're above people because of the color of their skin. We still have white supremacy. We still have Islamophobia. And that exists almost everywhere, even in countries that didn't have massive conflicts, let alone in South Africa. You know, some people think apartheid is better, and they still live in South Africa. So it's not like everything will be wonderful the next day. But what I do think is that there needs to be a system in place to protect people, everyone equally, but also obviously bring people and hold them to account, absolutely. But at the end of the day, you also need to look for the future too. So where obviously people wouldn't forgive or wouldn't forget or will remember, and also hold some people to account, you need to look to the future as well. And mind you, remember one thing, many people won't be happy with the idea of equality. So they will go somewhere else. They wouldn't be able to handle it. But from where Israel is going and the way it's being enabled and its crimes whitewashed and sugarcoated and supported blatantly by many people to this day, it's not going to somewhere nice. That's all I can tell you. Israel is pushing for something bigger where massacres might be committed against their own people, like they committed massacres against their own people, the other people. We don't want to see civilians being massacred anywhere. But this is where Israel is pushing to. Those people in Gaza who are being massacred, they don't see anything good coming out of Israel. All they saw is that people raising a Jewish flag, speaking on behalf of Judaism, and coming to slaughter them, and quoting religious references. That's what the Gazans who are being slaughtered see. That's what the parents of the butchered children with the body parts that you saw today, that's what they see. That's the people who lost all of their family members see. That's the orphan child, that's what they see. A Jewish state wanting to kill all of them, that's what they see. So, if Israel does not take steps back, not a step back, many steps back, needs to run back, Israel, they will be faced with massacres against their own population in the future. And we hope that we won't reach a stage where innocent people will be killed left, right, and center. But the way these psychopathic lunatics are pushing, Netanyahu wouldn't mind us reaching a nuclear war. He would have loved the US to start nuking, not knowing the potential repercussions. And that is very dangerous. And that's what many Western leaders are doing in Ukraine, by the way. If you're underestimating what you're going to do with Russia, you are extremely irresponsible. If there's anyone pushing for a nuclear war, by the way, it's these twisted, delusional leaders of the US and the NATO supporting Israel. Same mentality. And in this whole conflict, look at Iran. How did Iran respond to Israel? By international law, a limited, very well calculated attack on a military base in Israel. They didn't target civilians. Remember that. Regardless of the fact of how you view civilians and how many reservists they are and how many of them carry weapons and they can be called to kill someone tomorrow, forget that. That's what happened. Listen to the Chinese leaders and listen to the Russian leaders. They don't talk in a hostile manner. The only time you'll see them talking in a harsher tone is when they are provoked. From the clowns in the British government, from the clowns in the US government, from the clown head of the NATO. That's when it happens. But what they're doing with this supremacist genocidal state called Israel is pushing for a very, very bloody future. And that should worry the living daylight out of everyone, by the way. Everyone observing, everyone in power, anyone who can do something, and anyone silent. All of them. They should be very careful of what's coming if you let this pass by without accountability. So it's vital for every single individual to keep pushing and saying and protesting and supporting what's right, because it will not stop there. And again, John, I really do appreciate your continued support. And Brother Kirk Duckerty, thank you so much as well. And Stephen Burrows. You said passionate and precise, nothing like these in the corrupted and complicit mass media. We have to continue doing our work, because these people, even if they say something right now, I don't trust them. If they will flip their narrative right now and start saying everything accurately, I would look for the poison that they're putting in it, because I have no trust in them whatsoever. If any MSM outlet, if any mainstream media outlet will start depicting things as they are in Gaza tomorrow, I wouldn't trust them. These people have been silent. These people have been whitewashing knowingly. You see, that's the dangerous part. These people knew what was happening. Every single one of them, they knew what was happening from day one. They knew about the massacres. They were malicious. They knew they were covering up. They knew they were run by spin doctors. They knew the whole game, and they persisted. These are very dangerous people, and everyone needs to be careful and never trust them. Never. They are not to be trusted. And Ijalma, thank you so much as well for your super and all of your contributions. You said the difference between Nazis and Israel is that the Israeli population support genocide out and open for 80 years, while the Germans didn't vote for what their government did. You see, what happened in Germany and what happened in World War I and World War II should be revisited. No one should believe the history the way it's portrayed, because the people who told you the history are the same people who are telling you now that Israel is defending itself. And that white is black and black is white and dark is light and light is dark. Same people wrote history. So I would revisit that history and check everyone's position. And yes, in Israel, they're indoctrinated on supremacy and genocide and hating other people. Few people get out of that bubble and are willing to pay the price. Most of them don't. Not from what we see. And trust you me, I know many good people in Israel. But the way this country is run, the way the policymakers are, the way and how much it has a backing, and mind you, that could be very well calculated, because the country cannot live how it is and sustain its existence without supremacy. It must remain supremacist. It must push for the racist narrative, otherwise it will crumble. That's a state for you. And that must change. That must change, and that must change with foreign intervention as well. But the only foreign intervention now, officially, is the country supporting it. And saying we will stop arming them when? When there's an ICJ, when there are elections around the way. That's when. So no one's to be trusted. Apart from the people who resist, and the people who have resisted from day one and haven't fallen into the trap, and the people who actually take action, not just talk, I can have faith in them. Obviously to an extent with everything, but show me your actions. So show me what you said from day one, and then I'd be able to make a decision. Uncanny Mountain, how many Palestinians live inside of Israel? 2.1 million. Abna Dalil. Interesting question, actually, and comment. You said, Brother Mahmoud, what do you think about the Iranian universities offering to accept the students that get rejected from their universities for standing up for Palestine? Any thoughts on that? Proves that the Iranian universities have more freedom of thought and more openness and more acceptance than people who claim to protect freedom of thought and democracy and human rights and freedom of speech. In Columbia University, now the teachers are protecting the students. People from the management are protecting the students. And other universities as well. And they come up with these laws, right? Anti-Semitism awareness. Anti-Semitism awareness. Who are you fooling? In some locations, half of them are Jews wearing watermelon kippas. People who actually might follow the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not kill. Thou shalt not steal. That's Jewish for you. I'll tell you more than that. If Moses, if Jesus, if Muhammad, if any prophet, peace be on all of them, were here today, they would be resisting in Gaza. And they would be vocal against this genocide. They would stand with the righteous against everyone. That's what every prophet would do. So don't try and fool us. Don't try and fool us with this narrative. Don't try and fool us with this maliciousness. Don't try and fool us with this psychological warfare. It wouldn't work. All the prophets stood for what's right against their societies in many cases, by the way. And some of them paid for it with their lives. And if they were here today, they would be resisting and calling for resistance against oppression. That's where they would be. And many Jewish people know that. That's why they're on the right side of history. And I congratulate them. I know many of them. They're some of the bravest people out there. Marvin Vergus, thank you. You said, ever read the Protocols of the Elders of Zion? Yes, I've read and I've heard about it, but its authenticity is in doubt, so you shouldn't take it as like a manifesto of the Elders of Zion as if it was... But what I would say is I would look at what's happening. I would look at what's happening. And then say, okay, if the Protocols of the Elders of Zion is saying that, and they're running, I don't know, banking and media and this and that, say, okay, there's a link. So even if it wasn't 100% authentic, there are things on the ground. Marvin is saying, have you seen Medea Benjamin Code Pink confront APAC lackeys in government? No, I actually haven't. Interesting. Yeah, I'll have a look. Matlas X is saying, are the Ubermensch... Firstly, thank you for your super thanks. He's saying, are the Ubermensch really the tribe and the Untermensch the rest of us? Wow. That's the world we live in. Or the Goyim. Let's see if we have anything else here. Abed's saying, is there anywhere recent satellite imagery of that port project on the land side? Yeah. I mean, there's close-ups. So the close-ups are groundworks to prepare for anything coming from the pier to go in. So far, it's mostly land work. So they stretch some sand to the sea. They flatten certain areas to make it possible for aid to reach. But nothing has been done to a permanent extent yet. And to be fair, the project is a little bit ambiguous. And not many things are clear. So the US is saying it's purely going to be for aid, and Hamas is saying it's only going to be the US running it. Israel is not saying much. The US confirmed we won't have boots on ground. It's going to be purely for aid purposes. But from the tone of Hamas, it didn't look like they have a problem with it. Don't know if they had a deal with the US or something. I mean, they're not to be trusted, right? But it's not like it's active. I mean, they're preventing the aid flotillas from coming. There's a flotilla with 5,000 tons of aid, and they're banning it from coming, putting so much pressure. So where are you going to get this aid from? But the biggest question is, if the United States is worried about aid for people, then why are you sending the rockets to kill them? Why are you not going against the big criminal and stopping him? You have military might, don't you? But you always use it for the wrong reasons, although your people are very clear where they want you to use your military might. To stop oppressing people, to support people who are oppressed. And you can use it, right? You're claiming to be using it in Ukraine for the Ukrainian people. We all know the project, but you claim that. Why doesn't it apply on the people of Gaza? Why? Abna Dalil is saying, thanks for the answer, brother. Just one more thing. As long as Palestinians in the US are not ready to vote for someone else than Biden, we will not be pressured. It's not about the firstly, you're welcome. Secondly, it's not about the Palestinians voting for, or the Muslims voting for, or the Arabs voting, or it's for everyone voting for any of these genocide-supporting maniacs. And it worked here in the UK. Look how many councils had new leadership outside of the scope of the corrupt two-way party. And now you're starting to hear the Islamophobic racists. Oh, how comes we have more Muslim councillors? Oh, we're worried, we don't want them to interfere with our foreign policy. Excuse me, you racist, abhorrent, immoral individual. Who are you? That's democracy. People will vote for whoever they are. Plus, would you say that on a Christian? You Islamophobic, racist, abhorrent supremacist? And what are you worried about with foreign policy? Someone actually standing up against genocide? Are you worried about that? Or, God forbid, stop arming Israel? God forbid. And that needs to happen, regardless of these immoral people. You can't have this two-way system for life. It's a corrupt system. Come on. It's two-party system, same people donating money, they'll serve the same thing. Left and right. Show me people with real intent, real plans, by talk and action, doing something different for the benefit of the people, following the demands of the people. Matlas X, thank you for your super thanks. You said S-300, S-400 air defense for Syria and Lebanon, Russia dragging their feet. There's already S-300s in Syria. And Lebanon, I'm not sure. I think Hezbollah is going to keep it hidden. Look, when they took down the Hermes 900, which is the largest Israeli UAV, they said we're not going to declare the weapon that we used against it. Sending a message. This UAV can fly very high. They could have used something that's already been channeled to Lebanon through Syria, or who knows, through the port. Could be anything. But if the Palestinians and the Lebanese and these countries had solid air defense systems, and I'm not sure why, they don't, some people who are on the opposite side, bloody send them the S-400. What the hell is wrong with you? Egypt now, make a move. What's wrong with you? They're on your border. On your border. You said Rafah red line, Philadelphia corridor red line. They're there. Take some action. And everyone has an excuse to take action, by the way. Don't tell me I'm waiting for the right moment and right excuse. Come on. What do you want? 2 million to be slaughtered? What do you want? What are you waiting for? So the Palestinian resistance should have S-400. Hezbollah should have S-400. Everyone should have S-400. Anyone protecting themselves from Israel should have S-400 at least. Minimum. The US, even though now they said, we're not going to send Israel, poor little Israel, the 1-ton bombs and the quarter-ton bombs to, destroy civilian buildings and slaughter babies. But they still are capable of killing children, Israel, regardless of that. But we will continue to send them missiles to support the Iron Dome. Why doesn't the other side do the same with the Palestinians and the Lebanese? Why is it not okay for these people to have defense, air defense? All the Palestinians needed was a sophisticated air defense system, and you would have prevented the genocide. You already established that these people don't understand anything but the language of force. What are you waiting for? Send them to defend yourself. Anti-aircraft missiles. Simple. Dennis Huggins, thank you so much for your super. Where did we reach? Ramadan Musa saying, tell us about Israel's allegations of them discovering the Hamas smuggling tunnels. All propaganda and spins. As long as the Palestinian resistance is active, they haven't touched anything. And the Palestinian resistance, they have a sophisticated network of tunnels, hundreds of kilometers, multi-level, large, for different purposes. And they also have a network of what? Of dummy tunnels. What, did they not expect Israel to invade Gaza? Did they not prepare for this day? Most of the tunnels that Israel discovers are booby-trapped tunnels. They want them to discover them. The member of the war cabinet, Gadi Eisenkot, who was the chief of staff of the IDF previously, his son was killed in one, and his nephew, alongside at least dozens of other Israelis, if not hundreds. That's why they stopped following the tunnels, by the way. In many cases, the Palestinian resistance recorded them in the tunnel, looking at the camera, and then getting the highway ticket to hell. So it's all propaganda and spins. Uncanny Mountain. We need to call for direct democracy without parties and leaders so we can vote our own policy. It's called government by citizen initiated referenda. We clearly need a reform. That's all I can tell you. And what is now called democracy is nothing but a facade. You're living under elected dictatorships, elected authoritarianism. Big Brother, 1984, 48, 84. And the democracy, the Athenian democracy, it was nowhere near what we're living under at the moment. It was a democracy that was constantly going back to the people, constantly refining itself. Not electing someone after a spin controlled by the mainstream media that's controlling the party and manipulating you to choose them, and then you leaving them to do whatever the hell they want for the next 4 years. That is not democracy. So you need a reform. And there needs to be talk about more things to do with direct democracy, or such as this proposal. Because clearly the system is broken and has been for a while now. And with any governing system, you see, we're all human beings and we're all flawed. So nothing's going to be totally perfect. So with any system, even if it's the best system, even if you believe you reached the best governing system in the world, there needs to be consistent, constant review, reform, refinement, the triple R's. Review, reform, refinement. If that doesn't happen, recipe for political abuse and people controlling. And now one of the main problems is the level of money in politics. Unbelievable level of money in politics, and you're seeing it. Who's voting for that? How much did they pay him? AIPAC, right? Threatening the prosecutor, the ICC, threatening him. You will pay, we warn you, we will target you. How much were you paid? Oh, income, a combined 6.5 million. Okay. What is that? What is that? And they sell you the lie of the two-way party thing. It doesn't work. It's failed. That's it. You need an alternative. And the more important thing is for the people to be aware of it constantly and not be complacent or apathetic at some point. No, you can't be. You see, they're not apathetic and they're not complacent. They're constantly on it. Even when they show you that they're giving you something good, they have poison injected already, whether when it comes to tax, policies, foreign policy, whatever it is. People open their eyes now. Where are we? Amin, Danya, thank you. And Manuel Mendez, Alcalde, thank you so much for your super thanks. Amin is saying, if there are legal obligations of countries to intervene in Gaza, what are the factors preventing them? Is it only threats from the US? It's not clear for some, and it's unfortunate as well. Thanks for your channel. No problem, and thank you. Look, in terms of foreign policy of primarily the United States and Europe, firstly, most European governments belong to the US, like most of them. Okay, a couple of differences here and there, but like NATO, what's NATO? Well, NATO is the extension of the US. These people have no independence. If the US doesn't like something, They'll do something to harm all of the European population. They'll shut up and not do a thing. Look at the Nord Stream. Look at the campaign against Russia. What European benefit? What does Europe benefit from it? It doesn't benefit from it. It suffers from it. But the people are asleep. Taking action against the biggest gas exporter for Europe, all of a sudden, take a step back, hold on. Supporting an insignificant little tiny genocidal state in the middle of nowhere and going against Russia? It's Russia that gives you the gas. Take a step, think of your people. Before the US's ambition to take over Russia as a whole, by the way. They went and blew up the Nord Stream too. Who blew it up? It was supposed to give more energy to Europe at lower prices for the people. The US went and bombed it for their own greed, for their own corporate greed. Germany knew it and they closed their mouths. They tried to hide it, obviously, from the public. Then everyone's paying double, triple, quadruple in energy rates. No one's asking a question. Where's this coming from? That's varying, obviously. It varies between country to country in Europe. Like, obviously, the UK suffered gravely because they had that on top of Brexit, on top of COVID stuff. So they follow US policy. The money. Most of them follow the money, really. And clearly you're talking about countries that lack sovereignty in many cases. And whatever the US official foreign policy will follow suit, no problem. No problem whatsoever. Let's take the last couple of questions before we go, if we have any. And I'm sorry, by the way, if I missed any of them. It's just because the chat keeps going up, and I'll find the last couple of ones. Tashikom is saying the Eurovision showed hypocrisy towards the Russians too. Yeah, and the Olympics and everything. Boycott Russia, boycott Russia, boycott Russia. Excuse me, but if you look at the scale of everything, what Israel did is 10,000 times worse than what Russia did. Let it be clear. We support the people everywhere. We support the people of Ukraine. We support the people of Russia. We support the innocent, the normal people. We're with you. But we don't support criminals. We don't support corrupt politicians or corrupt government presidents, or wherever they are and wherever they come from. But that's blatant. It's blatant. The artificially generated sympathy for the Ukrainians. Okay, it has a level of racism with it, because some of these journalists, when they went to Ukraine, don't forget that, by the way. Oh, they look like us, they're white and they're blue eyes. Others were very blatant. Oh, they're Christian, they're not coming from Afghanistan or Iraq or... What is that? What is that? And Afghanistan and Iraq, who went to Afghanistan and Iraq and destroyed them? So you have that element. But even with that, it's not for the people of Ukraine. It's for US imperial corporate greed in Russia. That's number one. Because you're talking about people who would kill their own citizens for geopolitical and financial purposes. Didn't they know why they were going to Iraq? They had to take masses of troops. They knew they were going to be killed. And they knew they were going to be killed for the greed and financial greed and political greed for certain people on the top, yet they sent them. Not a problem. Some of them will die. There was an interview from a guy with a guy called Aaron Russo. He died of cancer. He had an interview approximately 16, 17 years ago, if not even longer. I'm not sure if it's still on YouTube nowadays. Some things get deleted. He was approached by someone who was pushing them to run for a certain state, to run for a position, political position. And this man was telling him, oh yeah, we're going to have this war, and we're going to be going on mountains and stuff, and we're going to show bearded people, show them as the baddies and what have you, and we're going to go to Iraq, we're going to steal the oil and this and that. He was talking to him casually. I'm not sure if he said he was a member of the Rothschild family or something. But if you look at it, it's a genuine interview with a genuine man. It's not like one of those made-up videos. And then he told him, if you're going to send the troops to Iraq, that was during the actual war, you know that you're going to kill our people. You know that Americans are going to die. And then he told him, yeah, what's 10, 9 soldiers a day for all of this oil? Straight up. And this is how these people think. This is how they calculate it. What's 9, 10 people a day from our people dying for billions? Wow. This is how these people think. So even with the elements of racism, of discrimination, of everything, it's still not the whole picture. Don't get it wrong. These people are careless of lives in general. But they're in power. And they know exactly what they're doing. Swat, Rose, thank you so much. And we'll wrap it up there. Okay, thank you so much for everyone who joined me. I really enjoy our conversations. And again, apologies if I missed something, because the chat keeps going up and down, even if I put it on live. But I obviously try and kind of highlight the main things. So apologies if I missed something. Thanks again for all of your contributions with supers. Let me just call them. I'm sorry, because I missed a few, I think. But John Doe, thank you so much, brother, again. And Infinite Content and John 11, Kirk Duckerty, Stephen Burrows, Stefan, Ijalma, Marvin Vergas, Matlas X, and Matlas X, and Dennis Hoggins, and Amin Dania, and Manuel Mendez Alcalde. And I'm sorry if I mispronounced any of them. Thank you so much for your work. And again, thank you for being here, by the way. You don't know how important it is to talk and participate and view, by the way. Don't underestimate that. Because, everyone wants immediate results. They don't happen immediately. They happen through consistency. So focus on the action. No matter how insignificant you think it is, it's very significant, and it changes things. So thank you again for joining me. And I will hopefully be with you tomorrow. I will obviously post a link. either during the day or in the evening like I did today. If you haven't watched my previous video, you can go ahead and watch it. Apart from that, enjoy the rest of your evening and weekend. Peace be upon all of you, and I will see you soon in the next video. Take care.